Secure some price for Friday, May 1st, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. And we've been telling you about Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Sekeres alongside Jeff Paterson sitting in for Blake Price for this segment. Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things with intern Elijah Ford. First of all, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate that. How are things in the J-Pats world?
Good. It's May. The sun is shining. It's supposed to be a beautiful weekend. So, I could complain, but I won't.
No.
All things.
We will take no complaints on a sunny Friday, J-Pat.
Exactly.
Today is the day to rejoice in the community in which we live. Now, Blake isn't here for this block. You will see him later on the program. We did record some interviews earlier today. Blake is off to Toronto to call an MLS game tomorrow for Apple Television. So thank you, Jeff, for sitting on in. Let's get to our daily poll question. And yes, it is Canucks-centric today. What is the biggest decision facing the new Canucks GM? The 2026 first-round pick. And, of course, we'll know where that pick lands, first, second, or third, come Tuesday with the NHL draft lottery, but needless to say, there's a big decision coming, particularly if that pick falls at number 3. Head coach, as we know, the new GM gets their say on the future of Adam Foote, whether the Canucks head coach will be kept or whether they'll be back on the head coaching market. Paterson's future, Elias Paterson, yes, after 2.5 disappointing years here in Vancouver, more criticism from management about his preparation and work ethic. What will the new GM do with Elias Paterson? Keep him or try and trade him this summer? Or if you think none of those are the biggest decision, by all means, hit that other button and specify in your reply. What says you, Mr. Paterson?
Well, I thought about going off the board and just saying full autonomy and the question of whether the new GM is going to have it. But I think I'm going to go with head coach because I want to remain optimistic here. And, of course, late Tuesday afternoon, we'll know. But there's a world in which the first-round draft pick isn't a decision at all. And that would be best-case scenario if the lottery balls fall in the Canucks' favor. So even if it's the second pick, I still think there's not a whole lot of a decision there for the new general manager. The head coach, though, we know that Adam Foote is flapping in the breeze along with Ryan Johnson and Manny Malhotra. Certainly a good chance that a new general manager will bring in his own head coach. And with the events around the National Hockey League last night and maybe again tonight, perhaps new candidates will be available. And maybe there'll be more coaching movement. And also, maybe it speeds the process. Like, is there going to be a race to get to Bruce Cassidy here? Or other head coaches that are available. Dean Evason's out there still looking for work. So if other teams that get punted from the playoffs decide to make coaching changes themselves, does that up the urgency on the part of the Vancouver Canucks to solidify their coaching situation?
Yeah. There's also some talk about Jay Woodcroft again, right? Who's an Anaheim assistant.
He had to be feeling pretty good about things.
One would have to think that there was a big smile of satisfaction on his face as the Ducks knocked the Oilers out of the postseason last night. More on that later in the program. Do you think Chris Knobloch survives in Edmonton after this calamity?
Oof, I don't.
He's McDavid's junior coach. They brought him in because of Connor and making everything good with Connor. And then McDavid went ahead and signed that 2-year extension, the doomsday clock, as many have said.
Yeah, I mean, my gut tells me that he's not. Just doomsday clock. Every coach seems to live by the doomsday clock. And I mean, how do you argue with the guy that got to 2 Stanley Cup finals? But there will be no third appearance in the Stanley Cup final this spring.
Yeah.
And some questionable decisions, certainly a lot of it roster-related as well, and that's a little bit out of the hands of the head coach. But it won't shock me if the Oilers decide to
Part
make
company.
a move there. Yeah.
What about our old friend Glenn Gulletson, former Canucks assistant, after Dallas loses in the first round to Minnesota with home ice as well?
112 points.
I know, and it goes right down the tubes.
And we knew a good team was getting bumped out of that series, just the way it goes. But they get outscored 14-4 at 5-on-5. I think that was their power play was terrific. Other than that, they stunk. And how about old friend Tyler Myers' healthy scratch?
Healthy scratch last night. Yeah, we mentioned that in the pregame. Stars fans are not particularly happy with that trade deadline addition from
didn't have a single point in that series.
But Jamie Benn's not really a scorer anymore. God, he's almost turned into like a dirt.
But he was out there. The goalie pulled for an extra attacker.
Yeah.
He's their captain, and yes, he has scored a ton of goals in this league, but he's out of contract, and I wonder if there's hockey left in. It didn't look like it at the end here. So
it seems like whenever you hear about Jamie Benn now, it's for a transgression on the ice, cross-check here or a dirty play there.
Mikko Rantanen, 1 even strength point in the series.
Unbelievable.
And looked totally disinterested for most of it.
Well, and left the game last night and came back. Okay, so on this poll, I would vote first-round pick if it was the 3rd overall selection, but we don't know that yet. I think the first overall is pretty much a slam dunk. I think you can make a case for Stenberg, but I don't think the Canucks will. They'll just be happy to take Gavin McKenna, the biggest name, the highest upside, the Canadian kid, and go merrily into the summer. If they get picked 2, I think that's also a mostly slam dunk with Ivar Stenberg. There may be a push for Caleb Malhotra, but again, we've talked about the complication here. If you're bringing Caleb Malhotra into the organization, does that mean Manny has to go? Because it would be an awfully strange dynamic to have a father-son team on the NHL roster, and we know what the Canucks have said about the sons of Adam Foote. They haven't had interest in the past, not because they don't like them as players, but because they just don't like that conflict of interest, weird dynamic of having sons with a father on the coaching staff, and I get it. Now, pick 3 would be quite interesting from the standpoint of, is it a slam dunk for Caleb Malhotra? Do you like one of the defensemen? If so, which defenseman? Is that Jace Reed, the right shot guy? Is that Carson Karls, the left shot guy? Is that the bigger body in Ver and Keaton Verhoff? Is there the possibility of trading down out of that spot and accumulating either a young player, more picks, who knows? But not having specificity on the first-round pick, I didn't go there. Head coach for me is very simple. Adam Foote is not an NHL head coach, so let's stop the masquerade. Like, I think whoever the general manager is who's coming in here has to make a coaching change. I did like you consider other because, needless to say, there's a huge culture matter here with the Vancouver Canucks after Rutherford talked about how bad that dressing room was until the trade deadline and keeping that going, the enthusiasm of the young guys that we so loved towards the end of the year, Steve Buium, chief among them. But I'm voting Paterson's future. It's the $11.6 million decision. I'm of the mind now you have to cut bait. I think he's toxic for your rebuild. Isn't a hard worker. Don't want that. You can't have your highest paid player and your would-be number one centerman not having that work ethic, not being part of the cultural change here. So I'm of the belief the Canucks should trade Paterson. I realize you're talking about nickels or dimes on the dollar now, but I think it's more important to cut bait and start anew rather than continue this charade with Elias Paterson. And even if that means he's successful in his next spot because it works as a wake-up call, I am willing to cross that bridge now.
I was watching Anaheim-Edmonton last night and watching Leo Carlsson do everything that Leo Carlsson does. And it reminded me that Elias Pettersson used to do almost all of those same things. And yet we know how it's gone the last couple of years. And so I don't know if that's a cautionary tale for Carlsson and the Ducks, but it just took me back to a point in time when Elias Pettersson influenced hockey games at both ends of the ice. And that's what Leo Carlsson certainly does for the Ducks. I mean, he's an incredible player. And so, no, I mean, look, the Paterson option is absolutely something that's going to have to be confronted head on. Does a new general, and I would imagine that this is all part of the interview process, that these questions are being asked of prospective general managers.
Yeah. But
does some guy that gets the job have the stones to come in and, day 1 or 2, pull the trigger on what would be, I was going to say one of the biggest trades we've seen, but obviously when you deal with your captain, who was electric last night for his new team, we look at the draft as fertile ground for trades of significance. And so would a new general manager come in and look to make that kind of impact right away by parting with Elias Paterson a month on the job?
You can vote at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels, and that'll be up all weekend. Our top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Canucks start eliminating candidates, others moving on to the next phase as the GM hunt continues. Elliot Friedman reporting that Shane Doan, Boston Assistant General Manager Evan Gould, and Florida Assistant General Manager Brett Paterson all interviewed well. The Doan and Gould candidacies are expected to move forward alongside that of former Buffalo General Manager Kevin Adams. I talked to 3 people in the last 24 hours or so who know Evan Gould. In one case, somebody who's served in the NHL and AHL, and of course, Gould has had AHL responsibilities with the Providence farm team of the Boston Bruins. Someone who went to law school with him at McGill, and someone else who knows him from his legal background. All think quite highly of him. One of the things I was told is, and of course he's involved in the Toronto Maple Leafs search as well. Sharp guy, McGill Law, tend not to be dummies coming out of McGill Law. He put in his time apprenticing in an NHL front office. He has been promoted up the Boston Bruins executive ranks. As one person told me, quote, he'd be a leap, but compared to the other guys who'd be leaps, he's the lesser leap. And that was meant to, cover all of these NHL executives who have not been general managers before that have been connected to the Vancouver Canucks job. And there's a lot of them, Jeff.
Yep.
I'll go back to, I think it was last Monday when we had you on and you said, I want them to cast a wide net and get some good intel from around the league on their organization. That seems like mission accomplished at the very least.
Matt, I've been pleasantly surprised by what I've seen from the Canucks GM search. Now, it's all hearsay at this point. I'm not in the room, obviously, but it seems like it's been fairly exhaustive. They've been methodical here, leaving no stones unturned. They're talking to a lot of people, which I think is great. And as you said, a lot of highly regarded people in the hockey world, a lot of progressive thinkers. Now, it is hard to assess what an assistant general manager has done in his current role with a different team. But I trust that the Vancouver Canucks, are going through the process here, doing their due diligence, and it doesn't feel like they're taking any shortcuts. And that was my big concern here. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, the 3 lists, and we were all freaking out about what are they doing with their 3 lists? But it does feel like it's been a fairly cohesive process to this point. Now, we need to see how it plays out, and we need to see who the last person standing is. But I would say it was 2 weeks ago today that Jim Rutherford stood before the media. Like, it hasn't been that long, and it feels like they have covered a fair bit of ground in 14 days to get to this point, which now sort of, my sense is that we're on the precipice of getting to a short list here.
Yeah, let's, I tweeted the number of names that have been confirmed as having been a part of this process with the Vancouver Canucks. Mike, we can bring up that visual. I'm not sure if you're ready with it just yet, but look, Ryan Johnson, the internal candidate, Shane Doan, Kevin Adams, Jeff Tambellini with the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, big British Columbia ties there with the Tambellini family, Bill Scott, the assistant general manager in Edmonton. There's the list for those of you on visual platforms. Ryan Bowness, the son of Rick in the Islanders organization. Langenbrunner is a second Boston AGM who has been a part of this, right? Evan Gold, Patrick Burke from the NHL head office, Ray Whitney, Brad Pascal, of course, big BC ties there as well. His father, Bernie, a legendary broadcaster here, and Brett Paterson of the Florida Panthers. So when I mentioned that somebody said to me, Gold would be a leap, but not as big a leap as some of these others, well, that goes for Shane Doan, who has never been a GM. That goes for Tambellini, Scott, Bonus, Langenbrunner, well, the whole list there.
Yep.
Outside of Kevin Adams, who is the one guy who has sat in a general manager's chair at the National Hockey League level. The other thing here, if Buffalo wins tonight and gets a playoff series victory in their return to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time in 15 years.
Over Boston, we should add.
I think that only improves Adams' candidacy because that feeds into the narrative of he oversaw a successful rebuild, right? Because rebuilding isn't just about getting a good team on paper and getting back to the playoffs. You do actually have to win playoff series, J-Pat, and Buffalo is one victory away from doing that, gets their second chance to knock out the Bruins tonight in Game 6 in Boston.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, when you look at what's happened in the playoffs. 5 of the first-round series are now done, and it's been a pretty good first round for hockey guys. Right? Like Danny Briere is the general manager in Philadelphia. Keith Jones is above him.
Yep.
But 2 former players there. Bill Guerin has had a hell of
Which
a
is
run.
a very peculiar arrangement in today's NHL to have 2 former players sitting in the POHO and general manager chairs. Go ahead.
Bill Guerin, just about everything he's touched has worked out so far. And Pat Verbeek has done a very nice job down in Anaheim.
Yep.
So you've got Eric Tulsky, obviously. You've got Colorado that's got a fairly progressive front office as well, although Joe Sakic is still around. But, yeah, it's just like there is no one-size-fits-all. There's no perfect answer, but you're right. I mean, the further that the Buffalo Sabres go, the better Kevin Adams, I think, can feel about the work that he did, even though this all really, the run itself, the on-ice run began basically the day that he was punted out the front door.
And the reports have all been out there that he was a dark cloud over the organization, wasn't particularly well liked, and we have discussed that in detail on this program over the last 2 weeks. When the owner instructs you as your first order of business to fire 20 people, gutting your support staff and the people who can help you do the job, not to mention getting rid of friends and associates of many in the organization, that is going to make you an unpopular person. So that requires some context. The other thing is, it's not like the Buffalo Sabres got better because Jarmo Kekalainen's ass was in the GM chair as opposed to Kevin Adams. Okay, removing Adams might have been something that was lauded and improved the vibe within the organization in the building, but I don't think that's solely responsible for the run that the Buffalo Sabres went on. They have added very good players. They added good players under the Kevin Adams regime. Okay, he had to make a gun-to-his-head trade of Jack Eichel to Vegas, where there was a medical dispute with Jack and the Sabres doctors in terms of the best course of action. And needless to say, Eichel and his team were right. He's had success and won a cup in Vegas. And yes, he did make a bad trade for West Vancouver Sam Reinhart down to the Florida Panthers. There were also some good trades. There was also some wise drafting in Buffalo under Adams. The other thing about Adams' candidacy, and we got Darren Dreger coming up who speaks on this a little bit. Adams worked in a Buffalo front office where he reported directly to the owner, Terry Pegula. And that might appeal to Francesco Aquilini because, of course, once upon a time, Jim Benning reported directly to Francesco Aquilini. Now, Michael Doyle is involved in this search, the Canucks business head. We'll see how it all shakes out in terms of structure. And, of course, the Benning reporting to Aquilini period of Canucks hockey was not successful. But if that's the owner's preference, that is the owner's preference. We'll see.
I'm just going to say that at one point there was a suggestion out there that the Canucks wanted this process wrapped up before the draft lottery. As we sit here heading to the weekend, I don't think that they're going to have an announcement of their next general manager before the ping pong balls do their thing on Tuesday. I do wonder if there is any concern whatsoever on the part of ownership about Jim Rutherford. And I don't know, is Jim going to be the one that represents the franchise at the draft lottery? If they win, the microphones, the cameras will be on Jim Rutherford, and we know what happens generally when Jim gets in front of microphones. And at this point in time, with all of this search going on, I just wonder if there's anybody internally at Rogers Arena that's worried about Jim being a bit of a loose cannon. Because he generally doesn't hold back.
Yeah, no, he's straight talk Jimmy, as we know. Here's the other thing that's interesting. And look, I think it goes to reason, but we haven't specifically discussed this yet on the program with regards to this search. And so let's unpack some of it now. So the Canucks are asking these candidates questions like, would you keep Adam Foote? If not, who's your choice for head coach? That's pretty standard with the general manager interview process. They're also asking them who they would draft, if first, second, or third. Again, stands to reason.
Yeah, you want that information.
Here's the loaded one, Jeff. How long will the rebuild take? And I bring this one up, of course, because of how it all came unraveled with Trevor Linden and Francesco Aquilini, where Linden, and really Gillis before him, both advised ownership, it is time for a proper rebuild. The team we have is not going to the promised land. It will be very difficult to retool, and it's time to suck it up, take some short-term pain for long-term gain. As we all know, those opinions were not appreciated, or at least taken under advisement by ownership. They chose the guy Jim Benning, who gave them the rosier view that they could be back to being a playoff team and a contender and retool it on the fly. And of course, those were the marching orders for Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin as well, and that has also failed. So you sure hope Canucks ownership has learned its lesson. There has been enough messaging about rebuild, both from the executives in place, particularly Rutherford, and from the club's PR department, community relations, in terms of everything they've put out about this draft pick and the number of draft picks they have. But you do wonder if there's a silver tongue in the room that can convince Francesco that this can be done quicker and you don't have to worry about 5-6 years of missing the postseason.
I hear you on that. I do think the times have changed, and they have traded away the defenseman that they chased for 50 years. And it sounds like ownership is on board with the idea of a rebuild finally, but that doesn't mean that it's an open-ended question. So you're right. When you look at the Montreal Canadiens, and
Rutherford had talked about bringing in a couple of players this summer, so there has been a little bit of mixed messaging, or at the very least, Easter eggs, clues dropped that has some leading to, they're going to try and do this again.
But I hope that somebody at Rogers Arena is watching a team like the Anaheim Ducks that absolutely took their medicine, out of the playoffs
Buffalo
for 8 years.
Philly too.
Yep. And so this idea of quick fixes, I think, is lunacy. And I hope that they've come to that conclusion. But if they're presented with the idea of a 4-year rebuild as opposed to an 8-year rebuild, of course, they're going to look at the 4-year rebuild. And that comes with zero guarantees whatsoever.
Yeah.
The other part in this, and it has been discussed, but again, watching the Anaheim Ducks, there was a time at which Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale were both going to be huge parts of the Ducks rebuild. That's just
right.
High draft picks. That's how it works. So I wonder a little bit about, you got Ryan Johnson, the internal candidate that is infinitely familiar with all of the personnel in the organization now. But does that make him too close to a Tom Verlander? Or,
of course, he didn't have Verlander
I'm saying
the Abbey guys. I understand what you're saying.
A new general manager coming from outside the organization isn't beholden to any
That's right.
of the draft picks here. And
That's
so
right.
if you say, well, why in the world would the Canucks look at taking one of these high-ranked defenseman prospects when they've got all these defenseman prospects? The Ducks are a perfect example of you can move your assets, replace them with other pieces, maybe better pieces, and still move this process forward. So just keep that in mind.
So what I would say there is that Anaheim was, if not uniquely positioned, well positioned to jump in when Cutter Gauthier said, I don't want to sign with the Philadelphia Flyers, and had the prospect and draft capital to be able to go out and acquire Gauthier in a pure hockey trade, right? Like young prospect for young prospect, Gauthier for Drysdale. They paid a draft pick on top of that. And the reason they were able to do that is because they had drafted so well for so long and had amassed this stable. When it became clear that Zegras wasn't a player who appealed to Pat Verbeek, they were able to move him out without setting the rebuild back. So, that's what comes with being in a rebuild for a number of years and being able to amass the amount of young players and prospects to be able to go out, make those sorts of moves, or withstand a player failing out. And it's not like Trevor Zegras failed out of the NHL. He just failed out of the Anaheim system, having regressed as a player from the height of what he was in 22-23 as a 65.23 goal guy to 2 lesser years with the Ducks, and some of them injury-related, should be mentioned, and before bouncing back and having a career year this year in Philadelphia. Elliot Friedman says that Patrick Burke, son of Brian, VP with the Department of Player Safety in the NHL head office, Rangers assistant general manager Ryan Martin, who had interviewed for some gigs, including Nashville, and Ray Whitney, have all been told that they are no longer candidates, that they are out of the proceedings for the Vancouver Canucks with their GM search. And speaking of Elliott and 32 Thoughts, he predicted the Canucks are going to take a run at the big right shot center Michael McCarron this summer. Michael McCarron, until this year, was kind of viewed as a failed first-round draft pick. Like, he's gigantic.
Right.
He's 6'5", 6'6". He's 230-plus pounds.
That's all part of it. That's undeniable.
He's a right-shot centerman, but it looked like he was going to be just viewed as a first-round. But he's 31 years old now. He was viewed as a first-round bust of the Montreal Canadiens, went to Nashville, and rehabilitated the career to the point where the Minnesota Wild paid a reasonably high price to get him.
Yep.
At the deadline this season. Not a scorer in any stretch.
Remember he steamrolled Casey DeSmith in that playoff series a couple of years ago behind the net. He got fined, I think, $2,000 for it. DeSmith was no worse for wear. But, I mean, he is a massive body who has some snarl and some edge. And it's funny because I was asked in my Monday mailbag at Canucks Army, are there any UFAs out there that you think the Canucks should pursue? I mentioned Michael McCarron as well. I also said Jeremy Lauzon is a guy that on the defensive side that I just like the way he plays. A guy with edge and snarl as well,
and a big right shot defenseman. I'm with you there.
I mean, the more noise around Michael McCarron, he's going to have options. And again, I've said it before. I am curious to see when the Canucks are at this low ebb. How much interest ultimately do unrestricted free agents have? You can throw gobs of money at them, but they're going to get paid wherever they go. And I would think a guy like McCarron, with his size, is going to get interest on the open market.
Yeah, for sure. And let me correct Lauzon, left shot defenseman. Yellow Dog Brewing releasing Brock's Beer, a West Coast Pilsner. This West Coast Pilsner is built for crisp passes and clean finishes, brewed in collaboration with Brock Besser. And this collab brings together Yellow Dog Brewing's hop expertise with a smooth, modern edge. It's a bright, snappy, and refreshingly dialed in with a subtle hop bite and a perfectly dry finish. Easygoing but confident. It's the kind of beer that shows up ready to play. And I saw a nice story on the Daily Hive with Brock out at the Port Moody tasting room with our friend Mike Coghill,
up in their gear, just wearing the T-shirt.
It's a great T-shirt, great gear. Got a lot of it here. in the studio. Okay, some of you may have been wondering, where's Jeff this week? You haven't had Jeff on. We knew he was coming in here on Friday.
Fear not.
And alas, our first opportunity to talk about John Cheech Garrett with you. So floor is all yours to say what you will about our friend.
Yeah, well, we spent Monday afternoon on the golf course in Squamish, and as I was pulling out of the parking lot after the round, I got a phone call, and just absolutely shocked. He was supposed to be working that Utah-Vegas game that night, and I knew that he was supposed to have been on Donnie and Dolly that day, and they couldn't find him, and I thought that was curious, but I didn't give it another thought at that point. And then when I got this phone call, it sort of all came together. So we lost Jim Robson a couple of months ago. That was sadness, but there's a reality that comes with people that are 91 years of age. Cheech was supposed to be working a hockey game, a playoff game that night. He was 74. So saddened, obviously, but also shocked. And I don't know that I have a whole lot to offer beyond the incredible tributes that have been paid. Mm-hmm. I would just say that was my experience, too, that this was just a
you have an anecdote that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I loved his zest for life. And the fact that he was still going strong, I marvel at the fact that he had a 50-plus year career in the game of hockey, from being a goaltender in the WHA and the NHL to obviously making the jump to broadcasting. And I said this on Convo the other day, but there are so many cookie cutter broadcasters and lots of good ones, but a lot of them sound like, if I'm flipping around and we're getting the American broadcast,
especially these American carriers, very spot on, Jeff.
Jody Shelley or Brian Boucher, they kind of are interchangeable.
Shane Knighty, there's a lot of them.
Cheech had such a distinctive voice that worked for him, and if you turned your television on and it was one of those off-Broadway productions on a Saturday night, it was Winnipeg and somebody, but you heard Cheech.
Yep.
You settled in. Like, I was drawn to his broadcasts, and I didn't try and clobber you over the head. He would be the first to tell you he was never trying to be the smartest guy in the room. He wanted to make it an entertainment product, but his analysis was always crisp and sharp and spot on as well, and he was able to do it in a playful, engaging style. As everybody said, Shorty and Cheech, an incredible pair, and Murph made it a great trio as well. The one thing that immediately when I heard the news, I thought back to a night in St. Paul, Minnesota. Tom Reed, longtime Minnesota Wild color analyst, was a defenseman in the NHL for a bunch of years. He and John were basically same vintage. And so there was the traveling crew of Canucks Media, and Tom Reed owns a sports bar just around the corner from the rink in St. Paul. And he was there that night as the host, and he and Cheech go way back, and Tom sat at our table, and the two of them just traded war stories of hockey in the 1970s. And as I recall, what made the night incredible to me was, like, they would just offer up a name of a guy that they had either played with or played against, and the other guy would howl, and you knew immediately that, there must be a story here.
There's several stories.
And sure enough, they just went back and forth for the better part of an hour and a half. The beer was flowing, and we were in stitches at this table. Like, honestly, if they could have filmed it or sold tickets, like, it was that kind of just two great storytellers, and ultimately that's what John Garrett was a great storyteller.
Well, you used the word playful, and I think that sums him up perfectly. I'm not sure John Garrett worked a day in his life, because John Garrett had a playfulness for just about every moment of life, whether that was as a player in hockey, whether it was as a broadcaster, or away from both of those activities. John was going to enjoy life, and he was going to make sure the people around him enjoyed life as well. Truly an original in that regard. Thanks.
Yeah, and part of that golden age of goalies turned broadcasters, when you think of John Davidson and Darren Pang, Kelly Rudy was part of that. Brian Hayward down in Anaheim, still going strong all these years later.
Yeah.
Greg Millen, who's passed as well now.
Yeah.
It's wild how so many goaltenders sort of around the same time all made the leap into broadcasting.
Well, and the other thing, and this is something that this guy can talk to, Blake and I, as well. Much is made of the list. Wound up at 42
Oh,
names
incredible.
of play-by-play guys that he worked with. There are not many color analysts that you could put beside 42 different play-by-play men and have a successful broadcast, right?
Yep.
Like there are just situations where chemistry isn't quite there. So that Cheech could work with someone like a Bob Cole, super serious, super structured, right? When the puck is in play, I speak. When the puck is, when the whistle blows, you speak. And there is no deviation from that arrangement, sort of the old school arrangement. Or someone like Shorty, who's going to be calling the game and then throw something your way mid-play, and then you've got to get in and get out before something significant happens on the ice. John was most adaptable to anybody he worked with. I've heard him tell the stories of Bob Cole and getting the Heisman, and, and all of that, as well as, perhaps more of his more lighthearted colleagues in broadcast.
I think the other thing that struck me about John was, and, when I started to travel, I had heard all these stories about his love of fast food, and I thought, okay, is some of this, shtick for TV? Nope. Not at all. And I got to in San Jose and Philly and Tampa. I at lunches or dinners watched it all, and he did love his fast food and his ketchup. He did.
I was 25 years old traveling on the Leafs beat, not making a lot of money, and some of the people on that beat like to have really fancy, expensive dinners. I was astonished that when I got here to Vancouver and started doing some traveling with the people, namely the broadcast team, because you're often staying in pretty fancy hotels, right? Because that's where the players get to stay based on the CBA and the NHLPA agreement. Like you've got to meet a minimum standard hotel every city on the road. And so you're usually in nice parts of towns with nice restaurants, and you wind up going there because it's convenient. No, Shorty and Cheech and Murph did not have the break the per diem dinners, almost never, right? And because of Cheech and his culinary tastes. Okay, let's move on here because, boy, if the season wasn't bad enough for the Vancouver Canucks, and of course, when you have a bad season, players want to go out there and play internationally for their country in the World Hockey Championships. You want a better feeling. First and foremost. Secondly, it's a rare opportunity to represent your country. And, thirdly, there's some developmental opportunities there, particularly for young players. All of that comes with the risk of injury. You're kidding me. 2 Canucks go down in pre-World Championship tune-ups yesterday. Yeah. First of all, Philip Hronek. And I'm not sure where our echo's coming from, Mike, or at least I'm getting one. You can look at the play right here, where he's just getting manhandled behind the ice.
Yeah, I heard the story first, and then when I saw the video, like, what in the world is going on in a pre-World Championship tune-up game? Like, clearly some heat. I think it was the Czechs and the Slovaks, if I'm not mistaken. So that comes with some built-in animosity. But still, just getting raked at the bottom of the pile there. Where are the officials? How about somebody step in? Finally, a teammate's trying to yank the other guy off of Philip Hronek, but I know that the coach said afterwards that...
I'm afraid it might be something more serious with regards to Philip Hronek.
We're still 2 weeks away. The World's start in the middle of May this year, which is...
odd. It's usually over by May long.
So it's May 1st today, so there's 2 weeks here. I didn't see anything in that video that makes me think that he's not going to be able to play in the World.
Dollywall talked to Yuri Slager, the former Canuck, who's the GM of the Czech team, and said, seeing the doctor, too early to say, we'll know more. Of course, Philip Hronek has months to get well here before the next Canucks game of consequence. So unless it is something that's in the 6 to 8 months variety, which of course would be devastating news,
right,
then he should have an lead-up time for the Canucks schedule. We'll see if it compromises his summer at all. And then Uffe Bodin, who's been a longtime Swedish hockey reporter, Nils Höglander, injured while playing for the Swedish team. And we've got some eyes on the Swedish team, of course, because there are 3 different Vancouver Canucks, Höglander, Ogren, and Carlson, who are all vying for spots on the wing on the Swedish team for the World Championships.
Yeah, and Liam Ogren scored a goal. That's good.
Liam Ogren was outstanding. We got the video here in a second.
Okay. But, I mean, Nils Höglander, just at some point you want to see the warm turn for this guy. Hopefully not serious, but obviously his season a disaster. Just the 2 goals, missed the first half with the ankle injury and the surgery. And then, again, a pre-competition game here and already getting nicked up.
Yeah, and I mean, Höglander, I think, is untradeable anyways. The Canucks are just going to have to eat this $3 million salary and put him out there and hope that he rehabilitates himself and either turns into a piece that is going to be a part of the Canucks' future, as he once was, or gets to the point where he's pliable as a trade asset. We'll see. But yes, that Swedish team, and a lot of interesting Canuck ties there. Ivar Stenberg, and we've got the goal here, scores, the 18-year-old for Sweden, who, again, first or second pick in the draft, maybe at worst the number 3 pick in the draft. Look at the shot. Boy, I loved watching that kid play at the World Juniors, Jeff. I got to say, for a guy who's not all that big, how he was in the fight, shift after shift, on the walls, initiating not just playing through contact, but initiating contact. I think you have a really good NHL player there, and he's already looking good with men on those pre-tournament ice surfaces. Viggo Bjork is also, that's another Swedish draft eligible who is on this team right now and vying for his spot. Of course, the Canucks drafted his brother Wilson Bjork, who just finished his freshman season at Colorado College. So I know we focused a little bit on the Ruck twins as a brother act that, can the Canucks get both of them, much like the Sedins 27 years ago? There's a potential for a Bjork brother act, although he seems to be a little out of the Canucks range. He's probably not going to go top 3. He's probably going to be gone before the Minnesota pick, but the possibility of trades and moving up and moving down, there's all sorts of draft capital in the Canucks.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see where he goes.
Arsenal these days, which they haven't had in the past, which of course makes trading more difficult on, draft floor. It's remote draft.
Vigo's not the biggest guy in the world.
No.
And that has worked against him. But I have seen some mocks and some final projections that have him as a guy that could kind of climb as high as 5 or 6. But I've also
he's been in ascension. That's
I've also
for sure.
seen in the mid-teens, and there's just a ton of variance around. So I am kind of curious to see ultimately where he goes on draft day.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Ogren scored 3 points in the game last night. So Liam Ogren, who continues to be a fascination for Canucks fans with all the athletic tools that jump off the screen, or and of course. Potential for a power forward there, and a big part of the Quinn Hughes trade is Quinn Hughes is off to the second round. More on that in a moment. We got to get to the Whitecaps here because, needless to say, this is the huge sports story. Well, it's the huge news story. I did CTV Morning Live today with Kerry Adams. It's taken over the news agenda, basically, this Whitecaps story. Let's start with the good news first. Mayor Sim saying a surge of interested local parties looking to secure the future of the Whitecaps. Quote, there are groups that are coming out of the woodwork. We're working hard, and we're trying to flush them out. To be expected, I suspect, at this stage, because everyone knows that this is a 5 alarm and an urgent situation, and so anybody with money or with the ability to put together money is going to get called on. The appeals are out there to see if there's any local buyers who could save the Whitecaps and keep them from a relocation to Las Vegas. So while I like that from the mayor, I do have to maintain a dose of skepticism. I have seen franchises relocate and fold before, and there tends to be a pattern to the way things go down. Here's the bad news side of things. Another story from Sportico saying the Gustafson family, they who would bring the team to Las Vegas, has not only met with MLS, but also with teams' owners, meaning they have had some sort of communique with Greg Kerfoot and Jeff Mallett, the owners of Vancouver Whitecaps FC. I texted Jeff Mallett yesterday. I told him, look, we've got a lot of questions, Jeff. I think Caps fans deserve some answers. He has, of course, always been very good about being available and representing Whitecaps ownership. For those who don't know, Greg Kerfoot is a recluse. He doesn't want any kind of publicity. He doesn't even want people knowing what he looks like, although I understand he's got his big hockey tournament going on at his Whistler compound today. Kerfoot's got a big place in Whistler with a hockey rink, and he invites all sorts of NHLers and people, famous people, to go up and play. I understand that's going on right now. What I will say is we do have to hear from Whitecaps ownership at some point. Like, I can't think of a less desirable situation for Greg Kerfoot than somebody ambushing him with a television camera and questions, but it's going down this road if we don't hear from Whitecaps ownership at some point. Mentioned I texted Mallett yesterday. Team spokesman got back to me saying he's not doing interviews right now. I think Minister Callan has been spot on this file throughout, and yesterday Ravi Callan says he's hoping the dialogue with MLS is genuine. But given the news of the Las Vegas bid, the unmasking of that ownership group, which is very well heeled, billionaires who come from the public storage walk of life, Minister Callan saying, quote, if they've already made a decision to move the team, I'd rather they just tell us. Yes, here, Minister, like, let's not go through false hope and song and dance. I can understand if Kerfoot and Mallett want to keep that charade up. But if, in fact, it is a done deal with Las Vegas, then I do think they have to come out and speak about it. And look, there are two different ways that this can go for Greg Kerfoot and Jeff Mallett. One is the dignified way, where you are accessible, you are as transparent as possible, and you give us the truth. And if the truth is you're tired of losing money year to year with the Whitecaps, you couldn't find a local owner, and you felt like it was the right time to get out because of what MLS franchises are allegedly worth, don't even believe in the MLS economic model going forward, although I doubt they would throw shade, then fair enough. I think people can understand that. They may not like it, but they can understand that. But please don't think you're selling this team to somebody who's going to relocate it, put out a press release, and not have to address the matter and take questions. That's the slimeball way out. That's the way out where the names Kerfoot and Mallett are mud on the streets of Vancouver for a much longer period of time, in my view. We did get a statement from the Whitecaps yesterday via Axel Schuster. And look, God bless Axel and the work he's done. Adore him as a person. He's done awesome work as an executive. But Axel Schuster is an agent of Kerfoot and Mallett. He's not making decisions here. So at some point we have to move past the Axel Schuster statements, Axel Schuster interviews. The statement yesterday, the club remains focused on finding solutions in Vancouver as discussions are ongoing. We will refrain from commenting further at this time. I like that "as discussions are ongoing" phrase. Our buddy Mike Martinego weighing in here, longtime soccer supporter in the city. Here's something I've thought for a while and others are starting to bring up more often. That account, Glass City FC, which was so plugged in on the Whitecaps happenings, it shuttered a while ago, and in anger. Did Glass City know months ago when it shuttered that this was going to be the resolution? Don Garber, MLS commissioner, at the FIFA Congress yesterday. There was an expectation he would take on this matter, and I'll give Don Garber credit. He is a more accessible commissioner than a lot of them in pro sports. He tends to do more interviews and individual one-on-one interviews than most commissioners. Of course, he's got a sport in the league he's trying to grow more than some of the others. He walked right past reporters at the Vancouver Convention Center yesterday. Did not speak, of course. Maybe he was still a little bit embarrassed by Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire, our first chance to talk.
He was working to get his X account back and get it online and make sure that everything was squared away there.
You know, I hate when I get hacked and the hacker puts out one reply.
Yes.
And then I immediately get my account back. I mean, just how diabolical and targeted that hack was.
Mm-hmm. One response to the hot button issue of the day.
Exactly. And then the hacker's out. Gosh, what a coincidence. MLS issued a statement instead of Commissioner Garber speaking. We can bring that up, Mike. And look, a lot of this is... MLS remains focused on working with the Whitecaps and local stakeholders to determine whether a sustainable long-term path for the club can be achieved. While in Vancouver for the FIFA Congress, Commissioner John Garber met yesterday with Premier of British Columbia, David Eby. He also had the opportunity to speak with Premier Eby, Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim, British Columbia Deputy Minister of Tourism Silas Brownsea, PAVCO President CEO Rahina Din. During the Congress today, those conversations were constructive, and we appreciate the time and engagement from local leadership. MLS and club representatives will continue discussions in the days ahead, and league leadership plans to return to Vancouver in the coming weeks for additional meetings. So, okay, good. We're going to see Garber again, more meetings scheduled. That suggests that it's not going to be a fait accompli quickly here, at least via announcement, even if that's what it's looking like in the back channels and in the back rooms. I like this from a longtime audience member of ours, Joey Hansen. If the Whitecaps leave, David Eby should sue Garber and the MLS for libel, so this imbecile has to go through discovery and we can see what a liar he is. There is a case there to be made, as I understand the libel laws. Like, if you call someone liar in a public forum, with that degree of exposure, now, I don't think a sitting premier is going to sue a sitting commissioner for libel, but legal avenues, as we've talked about, were one of the ways that the Columbus Crew supporters were able to save their team, that the MLS did not have an appetite to go into a courtroom in Columbus, Ohio, and have to reveal the sorts of things that they would have to reveal in discovery to the other side, to their legal adversaries. So we'll see what takes place here.
I like the suggestion. I think David Eby's got enough on his plate in other areas of his job that he's not likely to go
Probably
down the legal avenue here.
But it's funny because earlier in the week, Blake and I were discussing David Eby and the problems the Premier has right now, including members of his caucus who are not on board with policy priorities, and the unlikely re-election thereof, or if he's even going to run again. Somebody mentioned to me, you guys are thinking about it the wrong way. If David Eby is so far gone, does he think legacy? Does he think, okay, I'm going to do something that would otherwise be political suicide, but since I'm out anyways, and maybe years from now, I'm known as the guy who saved the Whitecaps, that's a better exit ramp than the one that's staring him in the face. And this person brought to my attention that BC Lotteries makes a whole lot of money. Again, you're directing BC taxpayer revenue or lottery revenue to a professional sports franchise and a billionaire. That is not going to go over well with the citizenry or at the ballot box. But if you're out anyways, just putting that out there. And then there's our boy Vanny, and we saw Vanny Sartini, ex-Caps coach, the CPL opener at Willoughby a month ago, his Halifax Wanderers beating Vancouver FC. Talked to him then. He was absolutely about save the Whitecaps then. We got the photo of Vanny and his wife Barbara there and Save the Caps T-shirts all the way over on the other coast of Canada in Halifax. Caption, football is love, and the football club belongs to the fans, that they love it, and the communities they represent. Save the Caps. Very good of Vanny and Barbara to put that out. Ken Sim spoke briefly after the Congress yesterday, but not a whole lot of there. Later it came out about more groups seem to be coming out of the woodwork. And then this from Dan Riccio, who, of course, was in this market for years and years on the local sports talk radio station, now back in Toronto. And Dan's got a long history with MLS. We called TFC games back in the day. Greg Kerfoot sat back cashing expansion checks while Major League Soccer ballooned to 30 teams. Now that the tap's slowing, he wants to cash out, only spent when it was time to sell. Vancouver fans deserve way better. I completely understand that view. And yes, there was rapid-fire expansion. And yes, Kerfoot and Mallard participated in those revenues. I think they would also argue they lost a lot of money year to year on the Whitecaps. I wholeheartedly believe that. Some sports franchise owners cry poor, and it's a distortion of the facts because, okay, maybe the team loses money, but the building makes money. There's also, of course, the argument, well, if you're in it for year-to-year profits, you're in the wrong business. You make your money on sports franchises when you sell them at some point down the road because of how much they tend to inflate in value. So anyways, give me your 2 cents on all this. You've taken in the week. You've been a long-time sports fan in this. Hell, you remember the heyday of the Whitecaps and Soccer Bowl.
Yeah. I was here at Robson Square, one of the 100,000. My mom brought my brothers and I downtown. She wasn't a soccer fan, but she knew that her young
community
boys
event.
wanted to be part of it. So, yes, I do go way back. We were season ticket holders at Empire. First things first, who knew that public storage was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise?
Very big.
Yeah, I mean, clearly.
They're even doing reality shows about storage lockers now. Storage lockers.
Well, we as society just have too much stuff, clearly.
Too much stuff, not enough space. Storage is a big business in Vancouver, too.
Not
a big footprint. Need that storage.
I guess I still have trouble wrapping my head around this idea that MLS thinks it's in its best interest just to pick up a successful franchise here in Vancouver, relocate, when we know that leagues always love the expansion dollars.
Yeah.
And
well, they've got a lot of expansion dollars of late, though, Jeff.
I know, but you can never have too many expansion dollars.
And no, I hear you, but if Kerfoot and Mallet don't want to own the team anymore, MLS's hand is forced here.
Right.
You don't want to shutter a franchise. Like, that is just about as bad a headline as you can possibly have, where you have to just close down a bankrupt franchise.
And look, if there was a soccer-only solution in terms of a stadium that was even 2 years away, Matt,
yep,
you might be able to bridge that gap, but we're no further today than we have been at any point here on getting a standalone soccer stadium. And so this idea of, somebody coming to the rescue wearing a cape at the 11th hour to just continue to play games at BC Place, which I guess that's the great irony for me, and I know I'm not alone, is that it's good enough to host a World Cup. It's good enough to attract Taylor Swift. It is an asset to our city, but it's just not the right fit, obviously, for
this league and this commission.
MLS and for the BC Lions.
Well, I think the Lions are, for the most part, fine with it.
Well, I'm just saying it's too big.
It's these precious soccer people who need their grass fields and their soccer-specific stadiums, and this is the way that Garber and MLS are going. They're strong-arming franchises and cities to do this. They did so in Columbus, and they're doing it here in Vancouver. It's not only good enough for FIFA and Taylor Swift, it's good enough for the IOC, right? Like opening, closing ceremonies as well. But itty-bitty Major League Soccer, like the number 6 or 7 soccer league the world over, can't have it. The fact of the matter is, though, and I did the hit this morning on CTV Morning Live. They asked me a lot about, how much blame does the provincial government have here? And we've been talking about it, well, not just this week. We've been talking about it really since the Whitecaps went out for sale, so 17 months ago. There is really no sensible explanation to me why the government of BC wants to set up a quasi-governmental arms-reach crown corporation, PAVCO, to run BC Place. That makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me that the province of British Columbia is in the business of operating a sports facility. But even if they were to turn all operations over to the Whitecaps, okay, there's more food and bev revenue, great. Let's even play it out to the point where they get naming rights on BC Place and they get a big annual check from TELUS or somebody who wants to slap their corporate name on the facility. And Blake did the math earlier this week. He thinks it's a minimum $5 million per year sponsorship. we're still talking nickels and dimes and maybe quarters, Jeff, when the Whitecaps need dollars, right?
Right. I mean, Axel's number was what, 40 million?
40 million.
Yeah. So, I mean, the government has claimed it's, rejigged the lease here, that it's bumped them up by 3 million. We're talking about adding on another 5 million. Right. But you're right. You're not even a quarter
of the way there. And the government also said via Minister Callan, and as a British Columbia taxpayer and citizen, I'm 100% with them. As much as I love soccer and want to keep the Whitecaps, if they're going to participate in the profits, they also have to participate in the debt servicing on the renovations of BC Place Stadium. That's only fair. So, it is very difficult to see a pathway forward for the Whitecaps. And this Las Vegas group, needless to say, has all the money to be able to make this happen. And if they want to take the gambit of Major League Soccer being worth hundreds of millions of dollars, best of luck to you. Something tells me. Kerfoot and Mallet bought the team for $40 million. At least that was the announced price, and I don't even think it was quite that. It was a very good business deal. Buying this team for 8 to 10 times that, I don't love that business deal for the Gustafson family, but they have enough money to be able to make this happen. So we'll see if that's what comes to pass or if there are local bidders that are able to save it. It's difficult seeing a pathway to making money here if you have to finance any part of a new stadium at the Hastings site. It's got to be a part of a bigger development, as we've talked about, and which there are many examples around this country and around North America of a bigger development, commercial, residential, whereby the sports team and the sports stadium is actually a small piece. It's such a big deal that you can justify it. Playoffs. Anaheim defeats Edmonton. We talked about that. Oilers out in Game 6, Round 1 after representing the West in the last two Cup finals. I wanted your reaction to this. Connor McDavid's money quote from last night. We were an average team all year. And he's not wrong. And it's 11 years of Connor McDavid now in Edmonton and 0 Stanley Cups. Time running out. They have 2 more years left on that contract extension that he signed, and only a 2-year deal because he needed some show me from the Oilers.
And he's not wrong about the team construct, but he had another year, 138 points, where he very well may win the Hart Trophy. We'll see. But he clearly wasn't himself in the playoffs. And he was a point-a-game guy, which isn't Connor McDavid. And then the other part is Leon Draisaitl, who picked up his points, but got hurt, came back for Game 1, but he clearly wasn't 100% either. Some people pointing to just the vast quantity of games that these guys have all played over the last couple of years. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there is an element of that. I think it does catch up to you. And Florida missed the playoffs as well this year after 2 straight cups and 3 trips to the final. But it's the same thing. It's a supporting cast around Connor McDavid. And, I was looking at it.
Trent Frederick, 8-year deal, 7 points this year. It's astonishing.
Yeah. And, their top 4 defensemen are all under contract for a bunch of years still. Now, Evan Bouchard had an amazing season.
Year.
But also on the 4-1 goal last night, you take the warts that come with all the offense, and he lost a battle along the boards, and the Ducks go in and score. Darnell Nurse, puck deflects off him. It was a little unfortunate, but when it happens a billion times, yep. It's not just unlucky. And I think they've got 5 years left on that contract.
Oh, yeah. And you wonder if Bowman survives this. You wonder, as we talked about Knobloch, and you wonder what can they do. This is what you're getting at. What can they do
that's
this
just it.
summer?
And you can't go back. I get it's hindsight, but as I watched what was happening in the early game, Jesper Wallstedt, and remember, Minnesota jumped up a bunch of spots to take Jesper Wallstedt. And
they jumped into the Edmonton spot. They traded down, 2 or 3 spots for, I want to say it was a 3rd-round pick, as opposed to take the goaltender who could have been the franchise pillar goaltender.
And Tristan Jarry is their only goalie under contract for next season right now.
Unbelievable. Quinn Hughes in Minnesota beats Dallas. What a play by Hughes, banking the puck intentionally off the skate for that goal last night. So Dallas loses that clash of the Titans in the Central, and Minnesota now gets Colorado in another clash of the Titans in the Central. Anaheim awaiting the winner of that Utah-Vegas series. Game 6 goes tonight. Knights and Tortorella a chance to win that series. Same goes for the Montreal Canadiens at home tonight against Tampa and the Buffalo Sabres in Boston. 3 games tonight, all of them teeming with stakes. Looking forward to this, J-Pat. And for the first time since 2019, the Western Conference Final will not include either Dallas or Edmonton.
Yeah, need one of the trailing teams to rise up tonight. We need a Game 7 in the opening round, don't we?
Well, I was rooting for both teams forced to force a Game 7 last night. Alas, no dice. But yeah, we got 3 cracks tonight. I think we'll get at least
we get one.
At least one of them. Just lastly, we don't have a lot of time, but is there any part of you that perceives the Oilers' loss as changing of the guard in the Pacific? Do you think Anaheim has arrived and will stay, or are you of the opinion, hey, McDavid is all but certain to be back at Edmonton next year? They had played 4 playoff series in each of the past 2 postseasons. They were due for a down year. That's a little too early in terms of counting chickens or ducks that there's a changing in the guard in the West.
I like the Ducks in the way that they've gone about business. Again, it's taken them a long time. We got the Sharks who are emerging, and they're going to add another top 10 piece here. But I think it's a touch premature. I think as long as you got McDavid and Draisaitl together, and Bouchard as well, the Oilers aren't done. But when I say that, I mean, what does that even mean? Because they have won the Stanley Cup.
McDavid comes out of the exit interviews and says, "That's it, I'm done here." That's a different kettle of fish,
for sure.
But yeah, as things stand, even with what could be a difficult summer and not a lot of flexibility to do things, you got those 2 guys. You, at the very least, are going to be an average team, right, Jeff, to use his own word?
Yeah.
If not better than average as they have been the last couple of years. The Nation Network, your ultimate playoff headquarters from expert shows, deep dive articles, live social updates, analytics, fantasy insights. The Nation Network has you covered every moment. Epic goals, big hits, game-changing plays. One network every moment. Tune into the DFO Rundown and the Sheet with Jeff Merrick each and every day for your playoff coverage, and we'll be dipping toe daily in the postseason as well. Okay, as mentioned on the show today, a little bit different. This guy's going to go away. Blake's going to join for the next 2 interviews and the final segment. We recorded this prior to him having to depart today. So we got Darren Dreger coming up on the Canucks GM search. Interesting stuff there about Kevin Adams. You're going to want to hear that. Also, interesting stuff on the list of in-person interviews, which he expects is going to be a shorter list. And he also talks to us about how, look, it was a very long list. Some of these guys were absolutely for the purposes of what J-Pat talked about last week when this thing kicked off. Go out and get some intel on your hockey franchise from the greater NHL world. No, I'm with you, Jeff. For the most part, I know people were sweating the 3 lists, but you and I were of the same opinion. They all come to the table with their own risks. Absolutely, net, exactly. And then get down and get collaborative, pare down those lists. Don't get territorial, open-minded. Oh, you like this guy? Why? Oh, okay, let's bring him on. So far, I've liked the process with the Canucks. Not a phrase we have said often with this team and its management. And then after Darren Dreger, we'll have Jeff Merrick on the program today. Jeff is doing a tour of significant junior hockey franchises. He's down the road in Everett right now. Of course, was in Penticton and Kelowna not long ago. We'll talk about the Canucks GM search. We'll talk about McDavid and the Oilers, and also talk about Cheech with Jeff, who worked with him for years at Sportsnet. All that coming up on the show later. Whitecaps, Vancouver Canadians, they're at home all weekend on a splendid weekend. Nick Taylor looking great down at the PGA Tour stop. Just an extraordinary basketball game last night in Atlanta. Raptors do-or-die stakes tonight, and a whole bunch of money coming into the Canadian sports system. We'll get into all of it. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. J-Pat, you're the guest here. Go ahead.
Well, we talked about teams pushing to a 7th game. I'd kind of like to see the Buffalo Sabres have come this far. I know they'd like to advance tonight, but give their fans the Game 7 experience. I think the Bruins will rise up, and I'm looking at Morgan Geekie. 39 goals in the regular season, an anytime goal scorer for the Bees tonight. You can get him at plus 205. So some value there on a guy that knows where the net is.
I'm looking at Utah, Vegas. Boy, with the way Utah presses the puck carrier, and I was talking about this with some hockey guys the other day on the golf course. You watch Utah press the puck carrier like 200 feet, and you say to yourself, there should be so many 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s available. We've seen snippets of that. I think you're at the point where you've got a lot of fatigue. The bumps and bruises are setting in. The old Vince Lombardi line, fatigue makes cowards of us all. I wonder if there are some goals tonight. Both teams to score 3 or more, so a 4-3 game or something higher. That pays at plus 195 tonight. So give me that in Utah and Vegas. Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid? Ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast. Now a 3-goal early payout. There's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365. Download the app today. See what early payouts all about. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Darren Dreger, next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We're now joined by TSN Hockey Insider, Mr. Darren Dreger, one half of the Rain Dregs Hockey podcast. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Obviously, as a non-rights holder, our focus is on pre and post games. And I was actually looking very much forward to the Game 7 possibility between the Ducks and Oilers. Not to be. No. So, now I'm focused on the obvious, and that's what's going on tonight, Montreal and Tampa Bay, and whether or not the Canadians can wrap it up on home ice at the Bell Center. And I'm at a point in my career where I'm not envious anymore. I've been blessed by having front row seats at several Stanley Cup championships and Olympics and World Championships and go down the list. I'd like to be in Montreal for that game tonight. A potential deciding game if it goes the favor of the Habs. That downtown area in Montreal around the Bell Center is going to be absolutely bonkers. So I'm looking forward to the game.
I was with you. I was rooting for 2 Game 7s last night, and we went 0 for 2, so we better get at least one out of the trio of games this evening.
As a guy that's from the Oilers adjacent province, heavily Oiler infiltrated country there. What's the panic level like, do you think, for Oilers fans right now about their future? And you know what I'm talking about.
How about Oilers management? What's the panic level?
Yes, that too.
Yeah, we know the fans are upset.
It's still very fresh, obviously, for Oilers fans. Disappointed, obviously. They're disappointed. They can't be in disbelief based on what we saw from the Oilers, and more importantly, didn't see, as Connor McDavid acknowledged, that they were an average team. When they got eliminated last night by the Ducks, they were average all year, and that didn't change in the playoffs in round 1, and they're just not good enough. And Leon Draisaitl also honestly described and said, hey, the Ducks were better. And it's just that simple. But we know how hands-on and at times volatile Daryl Cates, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers, can be, and I get it, and I appreciate it. He invests hundreds of millions of dollars, into developing that team into the Stanley Cup contender that they've been now for at least a few years, right? And they just have not been able to get over the hump. But there's a big difference between losing Game 7 last year to a really good Florida Panthers team and getting bounced by a team that most didn't think were ready to be this good this fast. So that's where then the speculation shifts, right? And so How hands-on is Cates and company going to be? And where does it begin? Where does it start? Every team goes through that forensic audit postseason. And, hard questions are asked of management, in this case, Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson. And then hard questions are asked of the coaching staff. And then ownership takes stock of all of that. And they go, okay, well, I don't like the direction we went from a management perspective, but who's better out there? There's a ton of heat on Chris Knobloch. I get that. Well, where's that heat coming from? Probably because there's a decorated guy. His name is Bruce Cassidy, waiting out there for his next opportunity. So all of that is in play now, given what the Oilers didn't do in round one.
Paterson for McDavid, who says no.
Yeah, you'd get a hang up on that one with all due respect.
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the Vancouver Canucks and their GM search. What can you tell us?
Well, not much more than what's already been speculated. And man, it feels like whether it's Vancouver or it's Toronto, even Nashville, every time somebody interviews, it seems like it's out there within hours, right? That has to be incredibly frustrating. And I'm one of the guys who does it. So I want to give credit to the colleagues who continue to spit these names out on a day-by-day basis. So you're not going to get anyone who is involved from Vancouver's standpoint in this process to confirm or deny names. They're at a point now where they're doing the in-person interviews. And what I was told this morning, that the list of in-person interviews is very, very short. So read into that what you will, guys. I don't know if that means there's 5 names on that list or there are still 10 names on that list. It feels like it would be less than 10.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that Kevin Adams is no longer involved in this process. And that's a bit curious. Not that, he's still involved. I think I can understand why he would be. Whether or not Jim Rutherford is a part of the decision-making moving forward. And I think most of us think that he won't be in the current capacity, right? He would be a strong believer in what Kevin Adams can provide. And he would look at what the Buffalo Sabres are and give Adams credit for that. So maybe he's one of those names on the short list. But I honestly, I work in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and I'm amused by some of the reactions to some of the names and some of the people who have been interviewed. But the truth is here, guys, and I'll apply this to Vancouver as well. When you bring in a wide net of names and people that maybe the fan base isn't familiar with, most media don't necessarily, they recognize because they recognize these names from other hockey operations crews, but they don't recognize them in terms of being in that realm of, say, general manager quality. Well, oftentimes, and I can tell you this is what Vancouver is doing, some of them, the men that have been brought through in this process aren't general managers. They're probably not going to be a general manager anytime soon, but you bring them in because you're picking their brain and you're thinking, well, let's go beyond the GM post here. We're going to have to hire other people and other bodies to flank the general manager. So it goes well beyond the interview process of just one individual. And I think that's an important note.
So are you willing to gamble that between, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen next week, but between, say, May 10th and July 1st, the Canucks will hire 2 bodies, whether it's GM, AGM, or President GM. Do you think it's 2 bodies for sure by the time free agency hits?
I don't know that it's 2 bodies for sure. Again, keep in mind that Francesco Aquilini is making the final call on this, right?
Yeah.
So does he want to get all that work done right now? I was told that the decision will happen, like the draft lottery is looming. And the hope was to have somebody in place by the draft lottery so that that individual as general manager is hands-on with the work that has to be done with your head of pro scouting or amateur scouting and all of that, so that you're fully prepped for the draft and then all of the shenanigans that go on around the draft. The Vancouver Canucks are in a terrific trade position. With the number of draft picks that they have, with some of the other pieces, the potential for change, all of that. So I think it's important that they have their general manager in place ASAP. And if they feel like the candidate, so let's say the candidate isn't isn't an experienced general manager like Kevin Adams. It's somebody who's believed to be an up-and-comer. Then maybe it's more important to make sure that you do have two people there to kind of spread some of that workload, because it's going to be that and then some. Now, if it's Ryan Johnson, if you've gone through the process and you recognize that Ryan is the best candidate and he's an internal candidate, do you feel strongly that he is ready to take it all on himself? Or again, given his lack of general manager experience, is equally important to have somebody on board beside him? And I don't have a firm read on that just yet.
I have a theory.
Okay, go ahead.
Both your reactions to the theory. All right. As Dregs noted, and I was going to ask you about this, so thank you for bringing it up.
I feel like this has been a theme for the last couple of weeks on the show, but each one of us going, I have a theory. so many questions on so many fronts.
Okay, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
In fairness, he has more theories than I do, Dregs. Okay, I try and refine my theories.
Okay, good to know. Yes.
No, last time you were on with us, early last week, I think, you mentioned they want the GM in place for the draft lottery. They hire and announce someone on Tuesday morning who is in place for the draft lottery on Tuesday evening. Here's the thinking.
Right.
If you hire a guy who doesn't go over well with the public, maybe that gets a little lost if you're the first overall. Or the flip side, if we fall to number 3 in the lottery, disappointment, but we're really excited about the general manager. And then there's the grand slam. The market loves the GM choice, and they get first overall.
That is
the biggest victory day for the Vancouver Canucks, and I can't think of how long, Dregs.
Yeah, okay. So I'm buying part of your theory.
Okay.
And it's all public relations motivated, right? So you're now the head of PR for the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, someone ought
which
to be,
is
really.
a significant stretch.
No, it's not public relations based. It's just there are public relation considerations.
I don't think that's a swear word. You're allowed to have public relations considerations here, and I think a good PR day is okay.
Right, and they need a good PR day.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Why would you care if you're Francesco Aquilini or anyone in a position of making this hire and influencing the decision as to what the fan base thinks of your general manager? Who cares?
Because
you know what
you're trying to sell tickets.
Confidence. Public
you're trying,
and hiring
confidence.
a general manager sells tickets? That doesn't sell
Consumer
tickets.
absolutely, Dregs. In this market right now, if they get the wrong guy here that the market goes, oh no, I think that's going to affect your ability to sell tickets and merchandise. And
again, who's the right guy? Who's the right guy? Who's the wrong guy? There is no right guy out there that is going to blow the doors off where Joe and Jill Fan go, okay, that guy has won before. He's rebuilt a roster before. We put our trust in him. I'm going to give you my 25,000 or whatever season tickets are in Vancouver. I don't know. I'm on board. Who is that? Who is it?
No, that's true.
I can't. My living is based on coming up with names. I can give you 10 names of potential candidates who I think are capable and would do a good job over time. But I don't know. There's no obvious slam dunk. There isn't.
So here's the thing. For me, the guy that's closest to that is Lawrence Gilman, because he's been attached to the most successful period in Canucks history, although I don't even understand. I don't even believe he's been interviewed, or at least that hasn't been out there. I think Shane Doan goes over very well with the public here. He's got a long history in British Columbia. Everybody knows that he's a very nice and approachable guy, not to mention a good communicator, with, needless to say, a very credentialed hockey career. Not that the credentialed hockey career matters, but in the eyes of fans, that can sometimes be helpful. If you are hiring one of these young, inexperienced guys like an Evan Gold or someone like that, they need to make a very good first impression when they're introduced to the media and the public here, whenever that may be. If you're hiring someone like Kevin Adams, and
Yeah.
Blake and I did a dive on Kevyn Adams, and frankly, the more investigation you do on Kevyn Adams, the better he is as a candidate. Like the more you can look at it and talk yourself into Kevyn Adams. But the fact of the matter is that Kevyn Adams is painted with the brush of being from the other tire fire organization in the NHL, and that as soon as he got fired, they took off and started winning. So he would take, for me, a lot of selling. They would need to be able to explain Kevyn Adams and why he's the right guy really, really well to the public here for people to get on board and not take a wait and see approach.
So just a little bit more on Kevyn, and whether this matters or not, I don't know. But Kevyn worked directly with Terry Pegula, the owner of the Buffalo Sabres, directly. Right. So there really wasn't a go-between. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I would argue that it worked in Buffalo. Kevyn had lots of time to build the Buffalo Sabres. He did. Like, Kevyn Adams doesn't feel like he was cheated in any process. So again, maybe because of the dynamic in Vancouver, that's another box that you check if you're looking at Kevyn Adams. And we're not going to go through the whole list because I don't want to disrespect anybody who's been interviewed in this process. But Shane Doan would be a person of interest for me. I would worry about, again, the lack of GM experience, but you don't have experience until you're a general manager. And you can say that about everybody, right? Yep. You know, the most decorated have a first job, right? And they made mistakes in that job. I think Shane Doan is a GM in waiting. I 100% do. And for all the good reasons. You know, the hockey knowledge, the culture, the character of the man, for starters. Let's just start there. He's a guy that just brings you calm and confidence. That's what he brings. And I think that, you know, the fan base would get that from Shane Doan. I think that he would need experience around him. But here's one of the reasons why I put a flag in the air. The NHL is going to return to Arizona at some point. As soon as they, you know, lift the do not come back flag. And look, there's still hard feelings, right? But I can tell you the highest office of the National Hockey League believe that Arizona is a market that will work, a mega market. And Shane Doan would want nothing more than to be involved in that process of bringing the NHL back to Arizona. So could that happen in the next 5 years? Maybe. And if it does, maybe that influences what decision Shane Doan is ready to make. But he's not going to string anybody along. He's not interviewing for a job he doesn't want.
Or the timing's perfect in that's probably 5 to 6 years away. I cut my teeth. I learn the ways of the world, and then by that point, I'm ready to roll. So
all right. Work. We'll watch this file over the weekend, and if they're announcing a general manager on Tuesday morning,
you'll get a donut.
Thank you.
All right, fellas. Thank you.
Thanks, Dregs. So, Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We are connecting now with Jeff Merrick of The Sheet here daily on the Nation Network, and we find him in Everett, Washington?
Everett, yes. So the final of our 6 CHL features we shot yesterday and heading back home tomorrow morning. Everett's lovely, by the way. Really nice.
I love the downtown core around the arena. It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. Right around the rink is great. Great restaurants, great coffee shops, like pretty lively. A lot of people wearing Tips jerseys too. So like pretty vibrant hockey community here. A lot of football, obviously, here, and baseball. But hockey's got deep roots. I mean, and this is a fascinating organization. They started in 2003 and have never missed the playoffs. You want to talk about pressure on a manager every year. It is an unbroken streak, and they may just win the whole thing. They'll face off against whoever wins that PA Medicine Hat series. But this team's a juggernaut. They've only lost one game along the way, so they're really good. They're really good.
I saw you debuted with the Kitchener Rangers. Who are the other franchises you've looked at in the CHL series?
So we did Chicoutimi in the Q. We did the Kitchener Rangers, the Brantford Bulldogs, and then Penticton, Kelowna, and now finishing up with Everett, the lone American franchise in the 6-part series.
Beautiful.
Before we depart the juniors,
yes,
Caleb Malhotra went off again.
This is this week's Caleb Malhotra update with Jeff Merrick.
Like
we do this every Friday.
Are we not?
But these are kids. They usually have a step back.
game.
They usually hit a speed bump or something. The kid is on the accelerator. He's stomping on the accelerator right now. Like, what's going on?
It's like every game. It's like a goal, 2 assists, 4 assists, 2 goals, 2 assists. I know at the most important time of the year too. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like the Bulldogs are loaded with first round draft picks, Adam Juracek and Marek Van Acker, like Jake O'Brien, and Caleb Malhotra game in, game out is like the best of the bunch. And this is his draft year. He's going super high. We've been talking about it all season long. He's going to go a lot higher.
We've heard you say that, but I feel like the scouting community has been a little slow to adopt this. Like they agree that he's rising, but I don't feel like the scouting community is ready to put him on the podium yet. I don't know, what more evidence they need.
Has to do.
Yeah,
I don't know what more he has to do. Like, what more does this kid have to do to distinguish himself amongst the top 3 picks in the NHL draft? Like, I know there's like some elite defensemen here, some really, really good defenders. Like, if you're picking in the top 10, you need a defenseman. This is your year to do it. I just don't know how you turn down someone with the complete that brings the complete package that Caleb Malhotra does, and he's saved his best work for the most important time of the year. I don't know. It always sounds like I'm his agent, like I'm working for Cortex here when I talk about Caleb Malhotra. But I mean, I just think the kid's tremendous. Someone's getting a really good player in June. Really good player.
Let's move on here, John. Let's move on here, Jeff. You worked with John Garrett at Sportsnet, of course. A lot of people in mourning this week after we lost Cheech on Monday. A few words about the guy you got to know.
Echoing what everybody said about him, like, just the nicest man in the world, and he wanted everyone around him to have a great day every day. John, the way that I've always described John Garrett is he's, those people in your life that you want everybody to meet. Like, for me, I wish that everybody could have met John Garrett, because he made every conversation better. He made every day better. He made every interaction better, whether you're watching him on television or talking to him on the phone. We had numerous conversations. I used to always joke. He would always say, are you going to yell at me about the mask today? So my favorite NHL goalie mask, this is WHA actually, goalie mask ever was his Birmingham Bulls mask. I just thought that was the best mask I ever saw. And he broke my heart one day when he told me that he painted over it when he got traded. I was like, that's what we did then. We didn't hang on to our masks and put them on. We just painted over it. We kept using it. I went and played for the Whalers and Nordiques and all that. I just kept using the same mask and I just kept repainting it. But he was also the first goaltender I ever saw. This would have been 76, I want to say, Toronto Toros. My dad got me gold seats right behind the net, and John Garrett was the first goaltender I ever saw. Before I went to a Maple Leafs game or a Marlboros game, I went to see the Toronto Toros, and John Garrett was my first goaltender. He used to always say, "Don't tell me that story. It makes me feel old." Like, he just had a turn of an ease of phrase, and just like really, really easy person to like. Mm-hmm. And I just wish that everybody could have shared in everything that was John Garrett, because as you've seen, everybody has a story, and the through line on all the stories is what a tremendous man, what a wonderful, wonderful person that made every room brighter and every conversation better. And you always came away with a laugh from John Garrett. He will be missed dearly by everybody. Just the best guy. The best guy.
A fantastic comment. The guy you wanted everyone to meet, because he just approached everything with joy. Like, you could be going to a mundane morning skate. Perhaps you were out the previous night and had a few cocktails, albeit in fairness, John was probably a part of that. And you're dragging your ass to the rink for a morning skate. And then there's like Cheech, and he's like joyful about a morning skate, on day 27 in the playoffs when everybody's feeling the grind, and he just.
My question is, he played for 12 teams in 15 years. How heavy was the mask by the end of that if he kept on adding coats of paint to it?
Yeah. Must have had a really, really strong neck. Yeah, like
exactly.
John Garrett.
Thank you for that. I want to start with Cheech because I know you knew him. There is a big story, one province to the east. It involves the team in the Alberta capital and their first-round exit to Anaheim last night. And their star player saying we were an average team all year, which was 100% accurate. Alas, he gave up a whole lot of money on this extension that's about to kick in for them to build a team around him. And it seems like the Edmonton Oilers have failed Connor McDavid once again. How do you see this playing out? And would you be at all surprised if Connor McDavid's in a different sweater next season?
I don't know about next season. I think that's probably it still feels too soon. How do I say this? So Connor McDavid gave the Edmonton Oilers an incredible gift, but he also attached a doomsday clock to it, right? So that's what we're all doing. It's like, okay, so strike one this year. The new deal hasn't kicked in. It's a 2-year deal, but is it really a 2-year deal or is it really a 1-year deal? And then Edmonton needs to make some decisions.
Right.
Right. So it's a 2-year deal disguised as a 1-year deal with a heavy decision at the end of all of it. Look, this guy is completely consumed with winning the Stanley Cup. Right. And I don't think that, going to the Olympics and seeing, rings and medals and the Stanley Cup, I don't think that helps. I mean, he surrounds himself with the best players in the world and he wants what they all have. Right. Like he looks at Sidney Crosby, he looks at Jack Eichel, he looks at Nathan McKinnon. Like he just looks around at his peer group and everybody's got rings. And this is the one thing that motivates him more than anything else. So the comments don't surprise me. Like I think he was speaking openly and he was speaking honestly. I do think we're going to get, a massive reveal about what was actually wrong with Connor McDavid. We wonder about the ankle. Did he have a broken hand to go along with it? How healthy was Zach Hyman through all of this? We all know about Leon Draisaitl and what he went through this year with his health. I think it's going to be one of those laundry list / medieval scrolls that we see when the sort of the big injury reveal has. But nonetheless, McDavid's point was the right one. They were a mediocre team all season. I think the follow-up was when you're a mediocre team and have high expectations, you're going to be disappointed. Make no mistake about it. Everybody is disappointed here. And I was trying to think about this last night afterwards and trying to figure out, maybe you guys can help me on this one. Have we seen a better player in the history of the NHL get worse goaltending in his career?
Dale Hawerchuk didn't get great goaltending.
How could you?
That's a very you know what who made
all
that
due respect
point?
To Pokey Reddick and a few others. Daniel Berthume.
Daniel Berthume.
Yeah.
That is the point. Wayne Gretzky brought that point up once when I interviewed him on Sirius Radio a million years ago. He said, everyone just focuses on Calgary and Edmonton in that division, flip-flopping Stanley Cups. He said, but if Winnipeg had goaltending, they would have been right there with us too.
Yeah.
We'd all sit in the room and say, like, man, if Hawerchuk had goaltending, this team would be right there too. That's a great one. So I'll throw Hawerchuk into that mix too. But like, it's awful.
Is it just though? Is there gross negligence beyond that?
Well,
the defense has not been well rounded. They've got individual players that I think most teams would have on their team, but just that collection in particular doesn't work.
I'll still go back to the net minding on all of this. Even last night, like there are saves like you have to make, and you look at the high danger chances now. Like, I know that we all use shots as a proxy, and I get it for how the period is going. But I don't know that I want to go off the cliff when guys are missing on a breakaway, guys are hitting posts, and all the high danger chances against the Edmonton Oilers are going in. And it wasn't as if, like, full credit to the Anaheim Ducks, completely, like full credit to the Anaheim Ducks. But when Leo Carlsson wasn't on the ice and when Jackson Lacombe wasn't on the ice, this is a team that got outscored, right? Like, those two players were massive in this series. But back to Edmonton, the song remains the same.
Yeah,
it's goaltending. They really, really have to fix it. And the problem now, maybe even more so than ever, with this doomsday clock just ticking off another season of Connor McDavid's career, no one's helping out. Everybody knows. There's no secrets here. Everybody knows what's going on. And now the whole organization is, I don't want to say right away going to be on Connor watch, but it's looming. It's looming again. It's an awful place to be right now. I don't.
Vancouver fans know about a superstar with 2 years left on
it. No, exactly. We can write the manual on that one.
Yeah.
I would add Marcel Dion to your list. He had Rogie Vachon early in his Kings tenure. He had Rolly Melanson late in his tenure that sort of stabilized the goaltending. But in the heyday of Dion and the Triple Crown line in L.A., there was a lot of dreadful goaltending. But, of course, Dion and Howard-Chuck aren't the player that McDavid is.
No, exactly. Those are the very goods.
Yeah.
Players of all time.
It sounds like Evan Gold, Brett Paterson, and Shane Doan are in good standing as the Canucks move forward in their GM search. Your thoughts on those three candidates?
I mean, they would all be first timers, obviously. The one thing that does stand out, and we did wonder about this when they won their second Stanley Cup, like, it was only a matter of time before all other teams just said, we can try to make our own version of the Florida Panthers, or we can just take their people. So Sonny Meta's off to the New Jersey Devils, and Peterson has been interviewed by a number of different teams as well. He's highly thought of out there. Like, I would even look at, to be honest with you, I would even look at the bench. Like, you look at what some of the assistant coaches here, and specifically Sylvain Lefebvre, and what he's been able to do with that blue line. He's sort of one of the most, I know we want to talk about coaches here, but or GMs here, but he's one of the sort of unspoken gems with the Florida Panthers for what he's been able to do with that back end. But, no surprise. I mean, Gold's name has been attached to a couple of different teams too. General manager, the Providence Bruins, he's well thought of. Jamie Langenbrunner's another Boston Bruins executive that's created some favor around here. Shane Doan is an interesting one. I think we've all sort of wondered, where he's going to land, because he's going to land somewhere eventually. So I don't think we should be surprised by any of this, but I still am a little bit surprised that at the end of all of it, it doesn't end up just being Ryan Johnson. I really thought that not that this was all going to be just like a big show. We're going to bring in, 25 candidates and interview them and then settle on, the guy we wanted from the outset. But he just, to me, still just seems like the perfect fit, the best fit for this organization.
He needs a tandem driver, though, doesn't he? Like, you can't just elevate him and have him the final hockey decision maker after being an AGM only, right?
But wouldn't you say the same thing about a couple of these other candidates too?
You're right. And it's funny. Like, it's not like Shane Doan's got scads of experience, but it feels like putting two guys that are kind of green in their respective positions adds up to a check and balance in my mind for some reason. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, strategically, this is very corporate. When you're hiring for one position underneath you, what you should do is hire two people. So when they argue or they politic, they do so horizontally and not vertically. So sort of corporate trick that sometimes leads itself into the NHL. But we'll see which direction the Canucks go here. I thought it was going to be Ryan Johnson at the end of all of it, but these would be three gentlemen that don't have NHL general manager experience. Not that that's a bad thing at all. Fresh ideas, new ideas, that's great. I don't know that we looked at the beginning of this process and thought that we'd settle on these three, though.
Yeah, and could be more. We don't necessarily know who's making the final cut. Could be up to 8 names, according to some reports, so we'll see where they go from there. All right. Easter egg time.
Okay. Oh.
today, Blake Price is not your partner. He's not your lifeline. He's a competing contestant with you. Okay.
Pressure's
All right.
on. Okay.
So the Edmonton Oilers are out. The Ottawa Senators got swept. That leaves the Montreal Canadiens as the lone standing Canadian team in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and of course the last team to lift the cup in 1993. Canadian team.
They started the streak, and now they're Canada's own.
Right. Exactly. Since the Habs lifted the cup in 1993, what Canadian franchise has won the most playoff series, and how many playoff series have they won?
Series.
And we are including the 2020 bubble playoffs, including play-ins in this. So postseason series, I should say, as opposed to playoff.
Yeah.
Which Canadian franchise has won the most postseason series since the Habs won the cup in 93, and how many series?
I'm going to say Ottawa, 10.
I'll say since 93. Since 93, I'll say Canucks, 11.
There were two correct answers. The Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers tied at 14.
Wow.
The Oilers could have been the most successful postseason Canadian team of the last 30 had they beat the Ducks.
Of the drought era.
Absolutely. 14 for Edmonton and Vancouver, 6 for Calgary.
6 only.
Here's the other crazy thing. The Ontario teams are tied too. Leafs and Senators both with 11. Habs with 12, although it could be 13 as soon as tonight.
Yeah.
New School Jets, because he always says, Not my Jets. Yeah. New School Jets, 4.
Yeah, just the 4.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. By the way, we do have John Garrett's mask here, the Birmingham Bulls mask.
Oh, look at, honestly. Jeez,
with the breathing out of this
nostrils, flaring
Are
nostrils.
you kidding me?
That's what made this thing so good. This was, as always has been and always will be, my favorite goalie mask ever.
Bonkers.
Can somebody explain the red band at the top to me? Is that supposed to be like
horns.
A bull's forehead?
That's his horns.
There's horns there?
The white horns are sticking out of...
the 2 white strips there are horns. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just his forehead and horns.
That was not immediately clear to me.
Oh, come on. It's insulting to the artist.
It's just like going into a art gallery, stare at it for a while.
Yeah, exactly. What do you see?
It's like a Matisse. Come a long way. We've come a long way in goalie mask art. Are you flying home through Vancouver or Seattle?
No, Seattle.
Right. Yeah. What are we even doing here, Merrick? Yeah. Come on up. We could have showed you a weekend.
I know.
I'll race you to YYZ.
You're closer to here than you are to SeaTac on most days with the traffic.
Blame my travel coordinator, Emil Delich.
Okay.
All right. I'm at his whim. We're hoping to go to the Mariners game tonight, by the way, too. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful ballpark. You'll love it. As we love having you each and every Friday, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
Sickert and Price from the Historic Wall Center in the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio here, built by Arbor Lee. The real win happens after the final buzzer. Stay downtown, stay comfortable, stay close to everything. At Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center, your game day home base starts at wallcenter.com. Well, Vancouver Whitecaps FC on the pitch, and they are still playing games, begin the long march to August with 8 consecutive MLS road games. There you can see the May schedule. And this all starts tomorrow in Los Angeles against the Galaxy. The big one is next Saturday in San Jose against the first place Earthquakes. San Jose has played one additional game to Vancouver, so right now they are slightly ahead on the MLS and Western Conference table. We are wondering about center back Ranko Veselinovic and whether he's going to make his season debut. Coming off the torn knee from last year, he was available for selection last weekend. He played in the Whitecaps FC 2 match, So things are looking good for Ranko, and of course he would be a big, both literal and figurative addition to that back line.
Yeah, I think it's still early for him to be starting. I expect him to be dressed again, available, and I would expect them to try to force him in at some point just to get him some MLS minutes again. But things are going so well. They don't want, and they're not tired. They don't have the cramped schedule that so many other teams, like the rest of Major League Soccer, pretty much. All the American teams, they've all been playing U.S. Open Cup and Champions Cup this past couple of weeks. Everybody else is banged up, is rotated.
Yeah.
The Whitecaps see this as an opportunity. Like, we're completely fine right now.
Fresh.
So we're just going to keep on rolling. So.
I mean, they'll catch up on Canadian Championship games start, and they'll also catch up in a couple of weeks here when they play a Wednesday game in Dallas, sandwiched between that big one in San Jose and then off to Houston. So they do a Texas do-si-do there. They'll stay down in that state, play Dallas on a Wednesday, Houston on the Saturday.
And not that this will adjust Jesper Sorensen's decision-making, but it's nice for the fans. San Jose is in Toronto this weekend. They play an early game, a 10 a.m. start.
You're calling this game?
I'm calling that game, yeah. So the Whitecaps fans will know, like, can they catch first place overall? Yep. I mean, it'll be tough. TFC's got, I think they're going to be tapping some community players to dress. They're so decimated by injury, but it's theoretical. You never know.
Then there's the magic man, Andres Kubas, who is in the conversation for most valuable to his team league-wide. Look at these stats. 34 tackles is first in MLS, is 5.3 tackles per 90, is also best in the league. They are undefeated with Andres Kubas because, of course, he had that little injury. He missed the only defeat that the Whitecaps have suffered in MLS play. He's also got 3 assists. Teams have not scored with him on the pitch, or is
no?
Yeah,
it's one of a couple of amazing stats right now for the Caps. That one is incredible. And the fact that when the Whitecaps score first under Jesper Sorensen, they are now undefeated in 25 matches if they score first.
Vancouver Canadians have lost a season-worst 6 in a row after a defeat at the Nat last night. But it's always a great time at the Nat, celebrating 75 years, and the weather for this weekend looks absolutely
sunscreen
perfect for baseball. Look at this. You got the nooner today, and then it starts to really heat up on the weekend. Nothing but sun, 24 degrees Saturday,
it's
25 on Sunday. Remember, Sunday is not only White Spot Family Fun Day where the kids can run the bases, it is also Star Wars Day with a light sword giveaway. And I know our buddy David Quadrelli from Canucks Conversation has already messaged the group saying somebody from our operation needs to go and secure a light sword for Sunday.
And if people are
big
wondering,
Star Wars guy.
If people are wondering, guys, it's called we're just going to use the verbiage that the Vancouver Canadians provided for us. We're not sure if that's strategic and legal. But we know what it's really called, but we're going to go with light sword because that's what it says.
I'm told light sword.
Yes.
If you want a saber, go to Buffalo.
Oh, well done, sir.
Landon Maroudis starts tomorrow. Daniel Guerra Sunday. C's starting pitching has been absolutely excellent this season. Here's our boy, our new friend, Johnny King. We had him on the program Tuesday. Jay's number 4 prospect. Amongst the best left-handed pitching prospects in all of baseball. He was outstanding again last night. 4 innings, no earned runs, 1 hit, 1 walk, 3 Ks through 56 pitches. Other than his first inning in his first start, Johnny King has basically been untouchable all season long.
He's only gave up 5 hits last night.
Yeah,
they still lost the game.
Their bullpen has been a trouble spot, and there have been other days where they just haven't hit the ball.
Yeah.
Abbotsford's Nick Taylor with an opening round 66 at the new Cadillac Championship stop on the PGA Tour as the tour returns to Doral in Miami. And in fact, Nick, at one point here on Friday, had it tied for the lead at -8 with Cameron Young.
Had solo lead, in fact.
Excellent. Doral is now called Trump National Doral. It is owned by Donald Trump, the U.S. president. It was a regular stop on the PGA Tour for years. It is famous for the Blue Monster, the big lake in the middle of the golf course that has produced many an exciting finish, all sorts of drama, errant shots into the Blue Monster over the years. So I'm really pleased to see this golf course back on the PGA Tour because it's truly a treasure golf course in U.S. golf. Let's hope Nick Taylor is in contention down the stretch on Sunday. This could be a whole lot of fun for the Canadian. An extraordinary basketball game last night in Atlanta, where the Knicks and Hawks...
And we mean that in the dictionary definition, literal definition, extraordinary. Not necessarily a great game.
No.
Just extraordinary.
If you were looking for a competitive game,
No.
This was not it. This has been a back-and-forth series. Two pretty good teams. The Hawks jump out to an itty-bitty lead early in the first quarter.
Yeah, looks like another good one.
And then New York takes over like few NBA teams have ever taken over. A 67-13 run. Think of that for a second. A 67-13 run in the first half. They take a 50-point lead at one point. There you can see on the bottom the score 72-22 with 4 minutes and change left in the second quarter. The 47-point halftime lead is an NBA playoff record. And needless to say, the Knicks not only won the game, they advanced in the series.
I do wonder if people love to blame everything on the three-point shot these days. I wonder if that has a role in a game like that too, Matt, where in today's day and age where you just think you can shoot the threes all the time. If you happen to have a really cold night at the 3-point line, that it's your bailout. So things aren't going right, and then your only way back into it is the 3-pointer. So you just keep hoisting it up, and it's still not falling, and you just keep sinking and sinking and sinking.
Knicks await the winner of the Celtics 76ers. Philly wins Game 6 to force a Game 7 in that series. The Minnesota Timberwolves advance. Good-looking second-round matchup with San Antonio. This is the first time ever both the Timberwolves and Wild have made the second round in the same postseason. Yeah. So high times in the Twin Cities. Lakers Rockets tonight. 3-2 series lead for the Lakers, although they've lost 2 in a row here. Barkley and Shaq think it's going 7 and that the Rockets could win this. And then the Raptors face elimination tonight. Got to win against Cleveland. Game 6 at home. Here's the problem. Brandon Ingram downgraded to doubtful for this game after leaving Game 5.
It's not a problem given how he's playing right now. That is not a problem.
The Raptors-Cavs Game 6, Pistons-Magic also in Game 6 in the top half of the Eastern Conference bracket. And Blake alluded to this earlier in the week, wanted to get a little more into detail because it was not a outstanding performance, to say the least, by the collective Team Canada at the Milan Olympic Games this past February. We have watched a little, well, more than just a little. There's been a diminishing of the Canadian Olympic performance since the heyday of Vancouver Whistler 2010. The federal government is stepping up here, a significant injection of funding to the Canadian sports system, $660 million available to sports organizations over the next 5 years. Quote, Canadian athletes feel heard, says Canadian Olympic Committee CEO David Shoemaker. The feds call this the most significant investment in the Canadian sports system in 20 years. So basically going back to own the podium road to excellence when we decided we want to be a nation of winners heading into Vancouver Whistler 2010. The money targeted at growing participation among children and youth, particularly in underrepresented communities, and improving sports organizations' safe sport systems.
They've also donated 10 million of that to this new Canadian National Training Soccer Center for the Canadian men's and women's national teams.
And that announcement today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so they just made that announcement of almost $10 million to get that started. They still not committed to a location.
I think that's today, though.
No. They just announced it. It's still no location committed. But it could still very well be in our backyard here, as Surrey's a big possibility.
There is a number of sites here in the Lower Mainland that are vying to be this new national training center. It makes a lot of sense. We're a hub community for soccer in Canada. The government economic update says, quote, "We want national sport organizations to work with private sector partners who share the goal of getting more Canadians involved in sport. And we expect national sport organizations to make changes to their programming to invest in sport at all levels." So there you go. You have the Carney government saying, okay, we're going to give you some seed money, but now it's incumbent on you to go out and get sponsorships. So going to have to be a continued or increased business ethic with some of these sport organizations. We talked about this after Milan. Like, look, it's one thing to go to the government and taxpayers and say we would like money, but you also have to pair that with your own fundraising in the private sector.
And hey, I think they should do it for club sport as well, i.e. Whitecaps and others. But when it's for national sports bodies, like, it's not just you're adding joy to Canadians. Like, there is a patriotic element to it. There is a national pride element to it that lifts a country up. It is not just entertainment. And hey, there's a limit to everything. I'm not suggesting you just open up the banks and say, they get whatever they want. But there does need to be some contribution. And this is important for the feds to get involved at some level.
The other thing here is when you develop winners, Olympic gold medalists, they tend to go out and have a positive influence on other Canadians.
Adam Vancouverden's a great example. He's part of that announcement. There's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm. Results of the poll question from Thursday. We asked you, do you feel Save the Caps will be successful? Yes or no? People said
no.
Percentage?
65.
74. Jay says no, decision's already been made. This is the face-saving portion of the process. Rusty says yes, too much history, incredible fan base, something will be worked out. Kirby says billionaire's going to billionaire. They always need a bigger boat. If there's money to be made, that is the only factor they consider. And Salt and Paprika says, I'd love it too, but it's not about attendance, costs, revenue, or even Vancouver. It's about an ownership. It's about an owner maximizing their return and local buyers unable to match. But we still have to try. Otherwise, we'll always wonder if they could have been saved.
Yep.
Agreed. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. Big list. Went a couple of days this week without an E or an O, but made up for it on Thursday. Yeah. Okay, so we were told the draft lottery is going to be 4 p.m. That was via Canucks messaging. It will now either be at 4, 4:30, or 5. It sounds like it's going to be contingent on the second round schedule and whenever the first puck drop is for Tuesday.
They should have put ish.
Yeah.
4-ish.
Don Garber was supposed to be available yesterday coming out of the FIFA Congress, but he chose not to stop and talk to reporters. MLS put out a statement instead. And Frank Corrado misspoke. He said no sub-6-foot defenseman drafted last year. He meant in the first round.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. Reminder, Tuesday it will be a late show following the NHL Draft Lottery, whenever that may be. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about and keep it local.